And it absolutely caught me at the right time because although I was happy at Countrywide, I wanted to do more. A few years ago, when things got tough in property, everyone became incredibly professional, but forgot that people buy people. I suppose I'm generally a walking conflict in everything that I do. I think I was a bit too blunt and a bit too frank for the public. Don't be afraid and present yourself differently. You've got to keep things fresh.
Cool. So, hello and welcome to the After Hours Property Podcast. And today's guest is Peter Krelle. And I'm very honoured to have you on here today. Peter is the MD of Peter Krelle Associates, and they're a multi-award winning property marketing agency. We'll get that out there. And they're based in Surrey, and Peter's been an MD for both Spicer Hut and Countrywide Land and New Homes. So I'm honoured to have you on here, Peter.
My pleasure, absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to speak to me.
No problem at all. So that's quite a career. I've been in your LinkedIn profile, I've gone through it, and you spent a number of years sort of almost at the top. So that takes some doing. So I'd like to know a bit more about what you were like before your time in agency.
Yeah, well, my family have always had an interest in property, and in fact, my parents have bought quite a number of renovation projects, and did what I think a lot of people did in those days. Bought one, did it up or extended, improved, moved on to the next the next project. So I was quite used to coming down to breakfast with 15 builders sitting around the TV, I sort of really through school did what I think most lads did, and that's just mess around. Didn't really pay too much attention. Loved my rugby, loved my judo, loved my hobbies. Yeah, they were my two main sports. Sure. As far as hobbies, loved music, has always loved music, always loved films, and always loved photography.
Do you still do any of them?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Literally, a day doesn't go by without me. I have music on the whole time in the office. Absolutely essential, and I'm never more than 6 foot away from an SLR. I start getting that sort of like I might miss out. Worried if I haven't got a camera somewhere. So even when I'm out on the streets, I always carry a high-end compact. Even if I haven't got time to take an SLR with me. So grew up in a little bit of that. Realised at a fairly open age that the demand for a 23-stone international porn star wasn't really out there. So really sat down with my parents, got halfway through my A-levels, had gone really probably for stretching myself probably at that stage. So I went maths, physics and chemistry. Oh, wow. Got halfway through it and I just said, look, folks, just not happening. I'm not going to work. Exactly. Bail out and go and earn some money. Go and see a bit of the world. And I did a brief spell in the restaurant game, purely as my dad had sold an ad agency that he was sleeping partner in, and ploughed it into restaurants and clubs because we used them, as a family all the time. Absolute disaster, and had to go and effectively get one restaurant back to almost break even, so we could get rid of it. So did a bit of that, and then my parents saw an advert for Gascoigne Peas, a well-known local estate agency in Esher, where I was living at the time, looking for a trainee negotiator. So went along, met the local manager. I knew the regional director very well because he obviously knew my parents. Sure. And they said, well, join as the assistant bottle washer. And so spent my first sort of 9 months in a darkened room with a photocopier. and we were lucky. We just got back. Well, exactly. We still had a plate maker. So, it was one of those things that when it used to chew up, 25 minutes later, you're sitting there with your white operating gowns on, and you managed to find a piece of paper, reload it with ink, and ka-chunk, and crank the handle. So, started as a young neg. had a great childhood, very sort of happy, and went to a fantastic couple of schools. My old school was, main building was built by Clive of India and set in beautiful undulating grounds. Yeah, it's now National Trust.
Yeah.
Started with GPs, and as they say, the rest of it's pretty much history. I knew probably was going to be my preferred route, but it was probably I was a good 8 or 9 years in the game before I realised it was specifically new build.
Right. Okay.
I think I was a bit too blunt and a bit too frank for the public.
Right.
So
Okay.
I tell people would get around you. They're like, "How can I sell my home?" I tell them what they needed to do to rectify it. You can do that to a developer. You can't really do that to Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
Sure. Yeah.
So it took a little while to find my niche.
Okay. So what age was it that you jumped into agency then?
I was just 19.
Oh, right. Okay. So I was literally sort of just out of school then.
Yeah, literally, apart from the spell, literally running around in a restaurant, which was great fun. Straight in there. The youngest in a team of 5, plus the manager. Had great fun. Learnt a lot. Had a great manager, a guy called Brian Meldrum. Very, very funny. As camp as knickers, and just a great agent.
Yeah.
And a very funny lad, and taught me so much in a very very short period of time, really.
Yeah, I think that's when when anyone starts an agency, there's always, or a lot of people, if they do have a good boss or a good manager, it's always sets them up for good stead with whatever they're doing, especially if you can have a bit of fun as well.
Exactly.
It's always good. So you mentioned that your dad was working in an ad agency. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, well, Dad had basically the controlling share of an advertising agency, but he was a type and photo setter.
Right. Okay.
So he left school and grew up in a council estate up in Highbury. He and 2 mates set up a company after doing their apprenticeship, and it was right by Smithfield Market, and it was a little 6 foot wide gap between 2 buildings, and they literally filled it in.
Yeah.
Monday to Friday, he never came home. He used to do 16 hours working, 4 hours sleeping, 4 hours shooting the rats in time.
Yeah.
And in fact, they knocked it down, I don't know, probably about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it still had my dad's name over it.
Really?
To that point, because nobody would look at it. Honestly, even if you were a mugger, you'd get nervous walking down. It was this small little lane they'd filled in. So he started in type and photo setting, got to know a lot of the production directors, obviously, who were principally his clients. And in fact, two lads that he got to know really well sort of said, "Look, we're thinking about going off." And Dad said, "Well, do you fancy a backer?" And went off and did that. So we used to. In fact, I spent a couple of years, 18 months more than a couple of years, working up in town with him, and in Bedford Row in Holborn. So our biggest client at the time was Ogilvy and Mather Focus.
Right.
Ogilvy being one of the biggest agencies still in the world, and a great bunch of lads. I used to spend all the time running between Holborn and Chancery Lane, going to get the next set of jobs, bringing them back, getting them sent. And of course, it was days before email. So if we had a fax, it was all exciting. We'd all gather around it and see what next job it would be. But mainly,
I can't imagine nothing about emails.
Oh, well, this is, we actually had a company bike and one of those great big tarpaulin things that you put over your head.
Yeah.
And it was sign written with our name on it. And we used to go herring down High Holborn to Holborn Circus Square. Honestly, people used to get out of my way. It looked like Mr. Blobby coming down onto...
You would have been quite stocky from your rugby years, would you?
Well, I'm weighing about 23 stone now. So people just out the way. It was just probably like the Michelin Man, but coming on 2 wheels at some speed, but go and pick up the next job, shoot back. So it was very sort of manual, and you never knew what it was till you got there. Spent some time up there. And Dad has been in that game his whole working life until, in fact, he joined us at Spice of Heart and used to do all our reports for us.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
Amazing.
you've never seen anybody quicker on a type board.
Yeah.
Obviously, those days of that, and in fact, that was part of the reason why when I was doing my A levels at school, I also did Pitman's. Because I could see the way it was going.
Yeah.
The year below me, very much sort of computer based, and I thought, well, I need to be able to do that. So grew up in a house of type. He started when it was hot metal. My early sort of memories of a kid is remembering him being in bed unwell for a couple of weeks when one of those great big hot metal things hit the side of the wall. Massive bit of metals came out. Fortunate enough, he saw it coming, pulled his face to one side, but it completely went down his front, and of course just burned in his clothes into his skin, and I had to skin graft it, get it off, and it was terribly scarred. Period of time, but actually, strangely enough, virtually unless he's in the sun tanning up, can't see it now. Amazing how the body heals. But that's how I started, and how I really got a love or an understanding of marketing and type and presentation, and that I've always tried to integrate into whatever I've done with regards to promotion of property.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a bit of a transition, because when you was at school, the subjects that you took sound quite academic, but a marketer typically has quite a creative mind. So how do them two sort of coexist? Did you use one to filter into the other, or?
Yeah, I suppose I'm generally a walking conflict. In everything that I do, I suppose I'm just probably a confused soul.
I love that.
I suffer terribly with OCD. So I'm about, everything in its place. Everything needs to look right. So if I'm presenting everything, I know it's always going to be, and that's why I love computers, because computers you can control and make sure that people just can't put in too many digits in that hole. It just chuck it out. So I've always had that going on.
Sure.
But I've always loved, because of my love of photography, very much visual things, and also. And this is the main difference, I think, between established sales in a estate agency and new build.
Sure.
New build, it's sexy. You're selling the dream.
Yeah.
You're selling a block of flats. So you're sitting here and you've discovered that the general trend is that for some reason you've done your analysis. Every person that's visiting your website is between 25 and 40 in male. So what do? You adjust your promotional material to say that, buy a unit here, and you're instantly more attracted to the opposite sex. And that's what you can do in new build. You can't do that with established. And also, developers tend to have a quite a significant budget at the point of acquisition for marketing and resale. So they know that they might be spending 4 to 6% of the total income of that site in marketing. So it's great fun, because they allow, if you've done your research and through your profiling that who your buyers are likely to be, they will play a significant, tens of thousands in the likes of Facebook, which is still our number one driver of traffic to websites and to events.
Is that because of how intelligent it is, or because a lot of people are on Facebook?
That's because of how good we are. I'd like to think. It's simple, but what people don't do, I think, generally, is actually look, profile, and establish where people are coming from. So, don't just speak to the agent that sold you the site. Speak to 3 or 4 other people. Do your research. Look at the makeup. Look at the age of the people living there. Is there any commonality with regards to ethnicity? Where have these people come from? Is it an aspirational destination for somebody living in a different area? Yeah. And if you do your research and you appeal to that market, and sometimes advertise, and I use it in inverted commas, on Facebook, off-piste, but in the areas that you think you're pretty sure you're going to get traffic, that's a great way of doing it. And we've had some great success over the last couple of years in selling whole sites from plan, all the units that were released on that day at an event, and we've even had people queuing from lunchtime the day before the release.
Amazing.
It's great, and it is great fun.
Yeah, it sounds exciting.
Yeah, it is.
So you've got a passion for obviously the marketing side and then the property side, so that the two sort of really go hand in hand. And it sounds like you've got a bit of passion for both. Was it until you set up your own company that then they sort of collided, or what was happening before that?
No, I mean, going back to my time in Countrywide, probably 3 years before I left them, so 12, 13 years ago, I had set up a small, effective marketing operation within Land and New Homes.
Sure.
Because if you think about it, as an estate agent, you're going to pitch to a developer. So a developer is going to want to know how good you are, or how good your staff are at selling their homes. That's the first thing. So most developers will rock up and go through the beauty parade. They'll have 4 or 5 in there. Do like the cut of your jib. How experienced are you in the local market?
Yeah,
that's one thing, which is great. Now, I thought, well, hang on. If we could take away a lot of the aggro of sorting out the marketing for them, wouldn't that be a USP? And we found instantly it was. So we would go there and say, well, look, fine. We know in your budget, because we're experienced in these worlds, that you have a reasonable allocation. How about we sort out and write the brochure, because we know what people are going to be looking for. We know what the sweet spots are going to be. If we did that, we're going to charge you for it.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to pay for copywriting anyway, and we'll design it as you would, and you'd have to pay for that as well. And we could even get it printed. How about that? And they were, oh yeah, well, that's great.
And who would be doing that before you introduce that?
They'd have to source it by a third party. So they'd go to an agency, and pretty much like we do now. I mean, we do obviously a lot of websites, online, social media. You can go to another online agency, okay, anywhere, but you won't get a property boy writing the website. And that is our USP. It's the same for everything we do. You've got our team have been together for a very long time in different locations and different companies. Yep. But the key thing is you've always got a property expert delivering. It's not just about design, and it's just we understand how people search for property, and we're constantly looking at changing trends as well. So that started in Countrywide. Right. And then went on throughout my time at Spices, and I've just jettisoned the sort of direct selling bit here now.
Cool.
So my focus is probably sitting in most cases between the developer, who is my client in most cases, and then the estate agent, making sure they've got everything they need to do their best job they can, and for the developer to see the best results.
Yeah, amazing.
And that's how we sort of came about, really.
So there's a story. We had a brief chat before, and there was a story that I found absolutely hilarious about moving into Spice. Was it moving from Countrywide to Spice of Heart?
Yeah, it was a funny day. I was at the Negotiator Awards at Park Lane.
Remember what year that was?
Let's have a think.
Roughly.
It's probably 2009, 2010, something like that, probably.
Okay.
It must be getting on for that. And I was with a table of Countrywide, the sort of senior management, and that included the divisional directors, as they were, that ran the various businesses, the chairman Harry Hill, and myself. And Harry and I were up for a couple of awards, as were the EA boys. And Harry ended up getting the Lifetime Achievement Award. He's such a character. Harry is a bit of a one-off, and for the second year running, I got the Land and New Homes Agent of the award, and Best Marketing Campaign, which was sort of quite nice as well, which was sort of part of that whole process. So yeah, had a good day, had a one or two light sherries.
We all know how them evenings go.
Absolutely. In fact, Harry said, right, that's it. We're at Lifetime Achievement. We're going for a drink. And there's a bar, I don't know how many floors up, at the top. And we all arrived up at the Penguin Convention. And had a few drinks more. And there were 4 lads behind us who I didn't know. I was fairly bad, but they were slightly worse.
Right.
And Harry recognised one of them and said, "Oh, he lives just down the road. In fact, they're the Spice of Heart boys." Got into the conversation. They said, "Come and have a drink." We said, "No, look, we're all right, lads. We're enjoying it." "Oh, come and have a drink." And eventually we went over and got chatting to Russ and to Paul Smith, who's the chief exec, and Russell Jervis, as you know, who's the MD of Residential at the time. And they were with the financial director, Mark Hurdle, and the genius that is Lucian, who's their sort of barrister and all-round legal advisor and fascinating character that he is. And they basically, Paul basically dangled I've got a blank sheet of paper. We've always wanted to do new homes right. I've had a couple of stabs. It's never worked. What do you think?
And there you are, just winning your reward.
No, exactly. And I said, "Well, what do I think about what?" And he said, "Well, coming to join us." And I said, "Well," and it absolutely caught me at the right time because although I was happy at Countrywide, I wanted to do more. And I wanted to change the setup. I had a few more ideas with regards to the likes of digital marketing. So we were just purely offline digital at that stage at Countrywide. So brochures, posters, all of that. Nothing digital, no websites, no social media. It really wasn't around then. Websites were, but not on a sort of an ad hoc basis. And he said, "Come and join us." And after about 3 or 4 meetings, I did agree to come across.
Amazing. So did you reconnect after the drunken night? How was that? Was that a bit of a sore head?
Well, it went on at the time. I had a flat in Glasgow, and I flew home on a Friday night. So I drove up to Luton. It changed, airport changed depending on what EasyJet flight was available and how cheap it was. And flew up to Glasgow. Went home for the weekend, and in fact the phone went when I was literally getting off the bus from the long stay car park at Luton to get in my car to drive back to the office, which was in West Byfleet at the time, so very early. And it was a recruitment consultant, and said to me, "Look, I know you guys had a few, but he was serious. Would you fancy just meeting for a bit of lunch and chatting it through?" And that's sort of how I came to work for Spice of Heart.
Absolutely love it. All started from a drunk conversation. A lot of things start from a drunk conversation, and you never know where they're going to lead. But
some of my ideas are usually coming. I usually write them down, and the next morning think, right, how plausible is that? Could we do it? Many a time that idea has worked.
All right, okay.
There we are.
And that's something I wanted to talk about with you, because obviously you've especially in your company at the moment, you've got quite a diverse lot of things that you can do, and it seems that you've sort of pushed or leaned into that throughout your career, and you've used your expertise and your skills to sort of develop things even within other companies. How important has that been to you, and do you think it is to other people?
Well, I think it's one of those, our service offering really has morphed over the last 4 years, nearly 4 years we've been doing it. You've got the core services, which we were offering both at Countrywide and Spice of Heart. So, brochures, paper adverts, all of those things. And then we've expanded the same principle, which is, bums on seats, generating people's interest into things like, heavy graphic hoarding. No difference really from a paper advert, just a lot bigger.
Yeah.
You know, and then the online we did for about 3 years at Spice of Heart, and we were just finding that it was just the number one driver of traffic to a launch
Really?
event. Yeah, and it was just outnumbering it. And in fact, that's how I ended up really leaving Spice of Heart. I got halfway through a expansion plan with my idea was to have regional new homes experts
Yeah.
that were associated to the various estate agency companies or regions,
Right.
and they would handle, and just experts in the field, didn't do anything else but new build. We'd drive all the inquiries there, they'd look after it, and then feed the viewing straight back to the estate agent. So you know, if it was a stock unit, the estate agent just had to do that. If we had a show unit or at least a sales centre on site, they would warm up and then deliver those people, potential buyers,
Sure.
to the sales reps on site.
Cool.
And it worked really, really well. But what happened was during the last day of our Bangkok conference, as it was, Paul said, "Pete, do you fancy a beer?" I see a common theme coming here. Fancy coming for a beer, and basically said, "Look, I've thought about it long and hard. I know we're partly the way through it. I'm not going to do it." And I was convinced, and I still am, and the way things have moved have proven me right, that it's the way forward. So one person owned the group, the other one didn't, so one of us was going. Off I went, and by the next week, I'd always had the plan to do something on my own.
I can imagine, yeah.
So the website was partly built, but maybe 30 pages, a little bit shorter than it is currently.
Yeah.
You know, so off I went, and PKA was took me ages to think of that name. Was formed, you know, literally a couple of days later.
Was it a big step for you, or was it? I mean, obviously, you know, it was you had the idea and you wanted to run with it anyway. How did you feel, you know, making the switch?
Massive culture shock. Massive culture shock. The two, in fact, Spice of Heart was though as well, I've got to say, because on the outside they look sort of corporate. And I've gone from the ultimate corporate. I know they're having a rough old time now.
Yeah.
But during my time at Countrywide, they were the most professional, the most corporate, you know, Joey Fitch, John, and you know, Anthony Kids, people like that.
Yeah.
Just wonderful people.
Yeah.
Wonderful property boys, and you know, Jerry, I know, you know, pretty much head honcho at the Ombudsman and the likes, and they were just wonderful people to do it. Totally professional. You were the MD of a limited company. If they wanted to come along to a board meeting, you know, it was, you know, they dutifully asked. They were my bosses, but it didn't matter. But there was a complete protocol. Everything was done. You had a financial director that would advise you and just say, "Pete, you do realise you're going X amount over your budget for that or whatever." I was like, "Yeah, totally aware of that. I'm doing it speculatively because I believe the return will be justified." And it was great. And on the outside, it says Spice of Heart was that, but really, there's one lad that owns the company. Yeah. And that's it. And if he doesn't like it, it ain't happening. So externally, it might appear not dissimilar, but was totally. So I had to get used to that, which was a bit of a shock. But maybe it did me a favour, although it may have been the worst career move in my life. I did meet some really good people, and did actually have spend many a day having a good old chuckle. But it did, I think, probably get me in the right slot to make then the next change, which is going to effectively a 5-man band. I mean, there's 5 of us that work together in total, and a lot of that sort of not so quite ad hoc, but we're not stuck in an office together. We're spread over, but that's what makes PK out. But going from that to having, you know, at Countrywide, I think during our heart, I had just sub 400 Lad and New Home staff.
Wow.
To 5, and all of which, you know, you sort of, you know, oh, the phone's not ringing. You know, and it's very different. And there's no.
That's a massive change.
Yeah, there's no board meeting. There's no monthly meetings. I miss having a team. I've got to say that's one of the big things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What I miss more than else is actually having a positive influence in their change of the way that they're performing on a monthly basis.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and now I just look in the mirror and give myself a good old tick. And
Get yourself psyched up.
Exactly. And I miss that. But apart from that, I've got to say the other thing I don't is meetings for meeting's sakes. I just do not miss. Really, got to drive up 2 hours. Because for me, Colchester is 2 hours.
Right.
Arrive for a meeting, which I could have easily done in a half an hour phone call, and then drive back.
Yeah.
And that's your day decimated. It really is. So don't miss any of that. Miss the conferences. The one thing Spice of Heart do so well are the sort of annual conferences and the.
There seems to be a theme here.
well, it's quite funny. I mean, especially with John Spence, the chairman.
Yeah.
I don't know if you met John, but John is 100% blind, but sees more than most people. And he's a Scotsman, and I swear, under there he's got half a blue face and half a white face, and I'm going to pick a fight. and there's you might take our freedom and all of that, and because there's some great bits that Spice Hard have got, and some real rabble-rousing conferences, and John ending it up and setting it forward, and everyone willing to go over the top, for the company's sake and for mutual benefit. So you miss, you miss all that being a smaller organisation.
Yeah, sure.
And I'd like to say, that you get more time to do other things, running your own business. But I would be completely lying, and I found that I work more hours now than I ever did before.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I found is exactly that. You start a company, you think, I can now go do whatever I want, but you don't. You're waking up first thing in the morning, you're on your laptop until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and then weekends you're working. But what I found is if there is something you want to do, perhaps just during the day that you wouldn't be able to do before, you can sometimes just go do that and take an hour out whenever you want.
I'm literally 4 years in, I am still trying to get myself to do it. I'm useless.
Yeah.
Absolutely useless. So, it comes to Saturday morning, I'm like, right, here we go. How many things can I cram in? So, but I am, that is one thing which I've got on my list of things that I want to achieve next year.
Yeah.
I think with COVID and the dilly-dallying with Brexit has been very tough for our game, Loudon New Homes.
Yeah.
And with developers watching, the run up to the election very closely, nobody was spending any money really, or not significant money. So I've got to make up for COVID and anything else that comes this way. This year, but next year I think would very much like to maybe get that balance of work life a bit better.
Yeah. So obviously you've been doing it for a while now, and you could consider yourself an expert. But one thing you do say is you're a social media influencer. Now I think that people have different perceptions of what this could mean. So I wanted to see what what you would describe that as, and also how it's helped you bring in new business, or how it's affected you and your company.
Well, about 2 years ago, we were awarded a green badge by Clear. I don't know if you know them, but Clear are the largest social media ratings agency.
Right. Okay.
And they awarded us, and they rate us in the top 7% in sector market influence. So,
wow. Okay.
And we do this. We actually social media we use in two ways. One is as a straightforward sales aid. So one of our clients has got a site coming up. We will then put together the visuals, which may not be CGI, it could be lifestyle based, whatever. Some key wording, put it together and drive people to the website, so they'll register. That's a pretty straightforward way. The other thing that we do for a lot of clients is help them increase their digital footprint. Right. So we post on their behalf. And the key thing for us is for them not just to say, got a new site here, or Fred, the site agent's been promoted. That's interesting, but really we want to help them become market experts, market commentators. So we monitor all press agencies. They come in and we manually sieve through all of the stories that come through, identify which is property, identify which is relevant to the marketplace that we're in, and help that developer make posts that promote them as a commentator, not just as a house builder.
I've seen some of the videos that you've done as well, and I think for anyone listening, I'll definitely recommend going and watch them, because some of them are actually some of them quite funny, and it definitely grabs attention. You said people do post about you got a new job and all this sort of stuff, but everybody else is doing that, and I feel like that's quite easy to do. But it's when you start producing videos that are funny to watch or easy to watch that you add in that bit much more.
Yeah, I think a few years ago, when things got tough in property, everyone became incredibly professional, but forgot that people buy people.
Yeah.
So and at the end, I'm very fortunate. One of my biggest video client has got a great sense of humour.
Yeah.
And he'll ring me sometimes laughing. I said, I've just come up with this idea. What do you reckon? Or I'm thinking about this. Can you give us your side? And we just sit there laughing together.
Yeah. Oh,
and they work. They get thousands of views. Mm-hmm. They're often reshared. And why shouldn't you enjoy yourselves while you're at work? I think that's absolutely so important to me.
Yeah.
I mean, life's too short. If you can't have a laugh, or you can't see something funny, and I think what's really, I think very important as well, we constantly look at other industries. I mean, the car industry spends a fortune on video work and advertising and stuff like that, and some of their stuff is wonderful.
Yeah.
And you just sit there and you think, right, okay, that's funny, or that's interesting. How can we reproduce that? Even if it's in a much smaller, budget. I mean, I've access to 2.5 million video clips of full HD 4K shooting, and obviously, if I can put together, and we can combine that sometimes with bespoke shooting. Mm-hmm. So, some will have, if you're looking at area promotion, for instance, when we do a sales launch, we'll tend to have 2 whacking great big 60, 70 inch screens at one end, promoting the area. We'll look heavily at the stats about, how it's produced, great returns over a few years, and we'll go and shoot, key points around that area, and we'll mix that together with a bit of lifestyle, and come up with something that you think, that sort of captures what that area is about. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, property, and even on the new build, that's one thing. But it's the area that you live in. That's the principle. That location bit. Sure. Location as it always used to be. That still is proper, and access. Commutability. Can you get down to a station easily, and can that station deliver you to where you need to work? And if it's easy, and you look at that, and and there's no reason why marketing can't be fun.
So how is it? How is people marketing at the moment? Is it good or bad in land and new homes specifically?
It's very safe.
Right. Okay.
And I think a estate agency is very safe at the moment.
Yeah.
And really, people ought not to be afraid to try something different, because unfortunately, if you've got, and we get this a little bit more in new build than you do in established, but we may have an area, and within half a mile we have 6 developments selling 2-bed, 2-bath homes, all finished to the latest spec. They might even have not dissimilar kitchens. So which one are you going to buy in, or are you going to go and see? It's going to be the one that's going to stand out, the one that's actually really heavily promoting the USPs of that development, and the one that's got the eye-catchy, exciting marketing.
Yeah.
So I see far too much pictures of an undressed lounge. Seriously, guys, it's 4 walls and a window.
Yeah.
It's not even a show unit. Let's have a look at what's the key feature there. Is it the fantastic balcony and the view? Is it the fact that you're, 50 yards, you're in a bustling town centre with a great nightlife and great places to eat?
Yeah.
Is it you're 30 yards from the station? You've got to. Everyone's got to try harder. It's just not acceptable to take an average, and quite often average. And the photography generally is disastrous.
Yeah.
I mean, and as a camera boy myself, I just sit and just tut.
I bet you do.
It's lazy.
Yeah.
It's wrong. And how many are now taken on a phone? I mean, I know there's companies out there doing the quick, we'll edit your walk round video. Almost that is better than a poorly exposed, focus. The only thing you can't do, even in Photoshop, you can't, if it's out of focus, you cannot do anything about it. Okay, anything else, you can lighten up, play around.
Yeah.
But, and that is the thing, I'd love to know the percentage of estate agents who actually have a camera in the office. I reckon it must be sub 25%.
Yeah.
Or 25% that actually use it. That's on the estate agencies, and developers, fortunate enough, can afford to go and get pros out, and it should be. But again, a lot of clients come to me, and we do a website, want to increase their online presence, and they've not taken high quality photographs of their past.
iPhone, don't they?
Yeah, and you think, hang on. To get it in there before, whilst it's dressed, whilst it's a show or view unit, get a professional in there, take it great for your portfolio, great for your land acquisition page on your website, and great for your corporate brochure to show to the landowner, this is what we do. Don't take our word for it. Here's the actual evidence. No excuse for it, not with technology now. When I started, it was literally, manual focus, manual exposure, click, and onto the next bit.
Yeah.
Now the camera does it all for you, and they still can't get it right.
I think it's crazy as well. You're selling however many houses, and these houses can go from 200,000 up, or whatever it is. And if you can't even be bothered to take proper professional photos, I feel like that just says everything about the company. Because if you're trying to sell this house, you want to make, and you don't spend all this money on making it look lovely, why would you not do the thing that really matters to get people in, which is picture that and make it look lovely?
Exactly, and I mean I've got an external hard drive wired up to my CPU, and that literally just photographs. I've just this year I went over my 100,000th new build unit during my career that I've sold.
Wow, congratulations!
No, thank you. And literally I've got at least a decent snap of virtually every house I've handled.
Wow.
Or certainly every house type, if it was one, if they had numerous on the site. But no excuse for it. This is the legacy of your company.
Yeah.
This is what we do. And you come, well, what was it like? You're sitting there with a landowner, describing, it's 4 bedrooms. And what companies don't realise, if it looks good on the surface, people will not tend to expect to then scratch further. There's an assumption they're being, and people want to see. It's like a lot of companies now that don't have photographs of the directors on the website.
Right.
I know a lot of them are ugly, but seriously, people want to know who they're dealing with.
I like your ones as well. I see that all your team have what them cool glasses on as well, which adds a bit of, character to you.
Yeah, well, we thought, do we go for the stage? Well, people know we do photography, and we do the corporate, head and shoulder shots.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, it's like, here we are. This is what we do. So we thought, no, we'll start. And in fact, most of those are social media profiles. And in fact, our creative who does wear glasses is a fantastic harmonica boy.
Really?
And great vocalist. Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely on the money. But they were his normal glasses, so I just photoshopped them. He was letting the team down.
Oh, right, okay. So for any agents out there that are trying to stand out, do you have three pointers for them to help them stand out or to improve their image?
Yeah, I think don't be afraid, and that is to either write something different. And present yourself differently, to try something different visually as well. And I think that's the second. And the third one is it's got to continually, you've got to keep things fresh.
Right.
So if you were doing one thing one week, you've got to be doing something the next. Now that affects both on and offline marketing. So, and people build a website, I think, oh, there we go, off you go, and then not realize that, no, that's got to change.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to, and that's why a lot of the websites that we build for people have like an Instagram feed at the bottom,
right.
so that, you know, they can literally take a snap on their phone, if that, and it updates the website immediately.
That's cool.
And that helps, you know, their presence. Blogs as well. You know, some people read blogs. I'm not a blog fan, but you know, a lot of people are. You know, regularly do that and find a way so that you can keep those fresh. You know, change things. If you've got, you know, if you've advertised something with external shot, you know, collage of interiors. Change the wording and never be afraid. Certainly on new build, if you've got a problem site that has maybe a little bit of a stigma, pull it off the market.
Right.
Look at everything you've done. Look at where you have had success. Jettison everything that has proven to be wasted, and you know, maybe relaunch it. Maybe look at a new name. Redo the brochure. People do brochures with CGIs on it. Hang on, you've now had a show unit sitting there for 2 weeks. How about replacing the CGIs with real photography, including interior shots? Pack shots are great, then get in from kitchen supply, but why not have the real thing? You know, create a sense of urgency. And I suppose the other thing, I'd probably, number 4, I don't know, maybe 1 and 2.
Go on, we'll give you another one.
Calls to, you know, calls to action. Again, we're just terrible as an industry as to saying, I've got a house for sale. So what? But, you know, why, as a buyer, do I want it? So you're going to now try and sell me all those key points, which is great. That's the first thing. And, you know, if it's not yet released, if it's new development, why do I want to register now? You've got to give them a trade-off. There needs to be an incentive, you know, and I'm a great believer, rather than waste your time, I loved closed launch events where it's invitation only, but you need to register. Register, you get to qualify them, you get to speak to them to get them to do it, and then you give them, before it's public launch, 48 hours before the public, you give them the opportunity to turn up to an evening event and come and see your wares, and they can reserve on that night.
And you get their details.
Exactly, and it's a trade-off, and you get their details, you get to speak to them, and you're going to find out. And the people don't ask questions now. People say, oh, what's your position? Oh, I'm in rented. Great position. Well, actually, right, where's your motivation? When do you need to move? What's pushing you? And it's basic estate agency in many ways. And I say estate agency, and that goes for developers as well. You know, a lot of them need to drill down on their buyers. But I've got to say, I think that developers are better at asking sharper questions than an estate agent, who I think would rather qualify them, but maybe not alienate somebody, you know, just through asking 1 or 2 sharp questions.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be very, very valuable for anyone looking to sort of, I guess, stand out in the market, and very practical information as well. So thank you. Pete, it's been absolutely amazing chatting to you. And I think if there's anybody out there that wants to connect with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, and either drop me an email at peter@peterkrelle.com or 07778 187 943, my mobile, which permanently vibrates 24 hours a day. But no, thanks very much, Johnny. Really enjoyed it, and good to see you.
And you, and if there's anybody that fancies creating any new opportunities with Pete, just buy him a beer and see where it goes. It was great to have you on. Thank you so much, Pete.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, Johnny.
Bye-bye.